Welcome to the Strategic Project Leader, where we help you leverage strategic project management so you can achieve your goals. Now, here's your host, Fola Alabi.
Oh my goodness. Hello and welcome. Good morning to another exciting show on the Strategic Project Leader. What can you expect? Fun, insightfulness, thought-provoking content, and everything in between. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that everyone just wants to know more about. But first off, I am your host, Fola Alabi. I am the Strategic Project Leader. I'm all about empowering you to become your best fit self. Strive and actually be the best at work and at home, all leveraging strategic project management skills. That's right. We're coming at you live from the Strategic Project Leader Studio in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada. I want to know where you're joining us from, so type in the comments. I want to see all the glorious people from South Africa, from everywhere. Let me know in the comments where you're joining me from. Today, it's just a show like no other because I have not just got one leader, I've got three powerhouses here. They're going to be sharing their hearts with us. They want us to become better as we move forward in our careers, in our business, and in our lives. We're going to be talking about communication as a power skill. And for me, it's all about the leverage that we can actually create as leaders, as business owners, and as even working parents as well. So what does that look like? Today, I've got great powerhouses. We're going to be talking about and sharing deep into this. First off, I want to talk about one of my great guests. Goodness, Joan. What can I say? She's not just a powerhouse. She's a mom. She's a leader. She's a speaker. She's a DTM. She's done like TEDx talks, and she's just all about communication. She's had a background within presenting and on TV. So when it comes to communicating, that's like her bread and butter. So she's going to be like just spilling the tea. So one of the comments there, because you're going to be asking her questions, you definitely want to know a little bit more about. But just bring her on stage right before I get my next guest as well. So Joan, how are you doing today?
Oh, Fela, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be a part of this dynamic panel.
Fantastic. Next off, I have Vijay. Vijay is not just a leader. Why I call him the coach's coach. Why? Because he actually mentors even leaders within the Project Management Institute. He is all about supporting, he's all about empowering leaders, and he does this with a heart just to give back. He's actually led other PMI chapters as well in the past. And with this, his background has actually helped him even become greater and better. He works currently within Meta as a product and program manager, and he's going to be sharing his hats as well. So help me welcome Vijay. Can I see Vijay there? Vijay, can you say hello to everyone?
Hi, hello everyone. Hello, Paula. Thank you for the great opportunity to be here talking to you and addressing everybody as well. Looking forward to a wonderful conversation today.
Fantastic. Good. So before we get our last goodbye, I just want to talk about Vince as well. Vince is also a leader. He's one who has given his heart and is giving back to the community. Vince is executive director of Access 52. He's going to be joining us shortly, and he's going to be talking and bringing the strategic aspect of how we can actually communicate. But first off, I'm just going to get Joan up with me on stage. But I want to just first of all dive into what's it called? Communication. When we think about communication first, communication is an art and a science. When we think about sharing ideas and doing this effectively, there's so many factors that come to play. And when we're doing that, we need to ensure that we have the tools, we have the skill sets to actually ensure that we can actually do this successfully. So now I want us to talk about this. So Joan, when we talk about communication, what is the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Communication and confrontation, very interesting. Both start with CON. And that word, that preposition into those words is really with. So we need to engage with someone to resolve issues, to get to the other side, to have rich communication. Now, conversation is not the same as speaking. And my background has been very rich and very diverse in the field of communication, broadcast sales, and as you mentioned, 10 years live hosting with a variety of different guests on television, co-founding an ad agency. That segued me into public speaking. President of the National Speakers Association, Virginia. I coach TEDx talks here in the Richmond, Virginia area, and nothing is more fascinating or interesting than knowing that one of the folks that you're working with got 3 minutes to share their story. And then for right now, what I enjoy doing is training on communication topics. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful field to be able to train, because we learn from our families, we learn from our friends. However, we get to execute it in our relationships. And how we do that really speaks for the quality of our life, the depth of the relationships, the richness of the relationships. And as you mentioned, Fola, it's not a one-dimensional kind of conversation at work. You bring those skills, those power skills, as you said, into the home as well. And that's why it's so important to be able to add to those relationships. And I know just from studying the field, being in the field, training and coaching in the field, I will never reach that pinnacle. And I know with 4 adult children and 5 grandchildren and so many wonderful relationships, that it's always something to be working toward. But there's a richness of life when you can move forward in that.
Fantastic. You just hit one of the great points. I always love to talk about that because I see communication as an art and a science. It's one that's all about effectively conveying whatever information you want, be it an idea, be it an emotion. And that could be done through language, through writing, through technology. But it's all about understanding what you need to talk about, what that message is, and then communicating in a way that the recipient or the audience gets it exactly the way we intended. Because a lot of the time people kind of say, yes, I think I was in that conversation. I think that person said something, but what exactly were they really saying? What was that all about? So today I want everyone to leave with a better understanding of how to better effectively communicate and to make that a power skill for you, especially in business. I want to bring Vijay up. Vijay, when it comes to business, especially with your background, I want you to talk a little bit for us. How exactly can we show up in the workplace? How can communication help us?
Yeah, and like Joanne said, it is extremely important, like a communication at a workplace specifically. We spend lots and lot of time in meetings, right? So most of us ended up spending meetings. And if we are in those meetings, if we are not able to clearly articulate what we wanted to say, exchange information, exchange ideas, what happens is all of these meetings become unproductive, right? Which eventually waste a lot of resources and time and then what we wanted to achieve. So it becomes extremely critical and important that leaders and even everybody to be better at communication. If you see the difference between a successful organization and the ones which are thriving and ones which are struggling, it's the alignment and communication. There are a lot of studies and surveys published which says that clearly the people, the most of the employees are not aware of the goals leader has set forward. And when people are interviewed, do you know what the company is striving towards to achieve in this quarter or in this half? And the employees not clearly aligned, that means the organizations and the leaders are somewhere failing to clearly communicate the message to everyone. So once they are aligned, once everybody knows where they're heading, it becomes very easy to execute. So it's extremely important because communication and clarity is at the center of every business success.
Fola, if I could add something to Vijay's comment, it just struck a chord with me, Vijay. How much of our lives are spent in meetings? A ton of it, right? Exactly. Which means when we take people out of what they're doing successfully in the workplace to put into a meeting, cha-ching, that's dollars where we're spent either on a virtual meeting or live in a meeting. And we've got to make sure that they're as productive as possible. Recently, I coached a woman in Chicago, and she was very successful in the events industry. She managed people, product, food, venue. 10 years she did this so very well. And she got what she was after, which was a promotion. She was now a part of the C-suite team. And as successful as she was for the past 10 years, when she got in the meetings with 9 other C-suite managers, she could not speak. She was so intimidated by their expertise, their experience, their titles, that she shut down. Well, as you know, that's not a good look for any manager. And that certainly cripples you as far as being effective with your team and what you need to say and what you want to say. So, what we did was work on her voice in managing meetings. And I know, Fola, you're a Toastmaster. Vin, who's going to join us, is a Toastmaster. No pressure, Vijay, for you to be a Toastmaster. But nonetheless, meetings are the focus for the near 90-year history that Toastmasters has. Why? Because you learn how to use your voice. So with Carol in Chicago, what we did was simple things. For example, she would ask to be timekeeper in those meetings so that meetings are very effective and efficient when they stay on time. Her voice can be heard. She could hear her voice and others could get acquainted with her. Secondly, what she would do is, just as I did now with Vijay, if someone spoke something and it resonated with her, she could very much ad-lib and say, Vijay, great job, or I'd like to offer another comment on that. So she could get her voice heard right there. When the agenda came out, she would ask the organizer that she had something very important to say, other underline item number 2B. She only needed 3 minutes. Now, the responsibility on her side was to be very well practiced, or at least acquainted with what she wanted to say, so that there was a calmness and ease in communicating. And then on the other side of that, to be the one to put together the notes for the meeting. So she could start that communication, get more comfortable with her voice, get more credibility with the team. And I'm pleased to say that that really helped her. But again, setting clear priorities for those that are very verbal and those that aren't verbal is the key to effective project management. Because if you are in the meeting, I want to hear your voice. How do we do that and make it most efficient and effective for you to do that and share your expertise with the team? Thanks, Fola. I just wanted to jump on what
No,
Vijay had to say.
definitely. That was a very, very great point, because a lot of us as professionals, we always pull into different meetings at different points in time. And you're either gathering requirements or understanding stakeholder needs, or you're trying to convey progress on a particular project. You need to be prepared to do that, really well. And what does that really mean? And I want to really, dive into this a little bit. One piece that is extremely important that I always start with is the preparation that should happen even before you go off and engage in any form of communication, be it in writing or be it verbally in person. What are the things you need to think about when, you put an idea together and say, yes, I've got a meeting with a VP. I want to talk about maybe the status of a particular program. And I want to be sure that at the end of that conversation, I want to get a decision, for instance, or I want to be able to influence an outcome. But you need to know specifically what exactly do you want from that particular person, and how am I going to ensure that I speak clearly? How am I going to ensure that the message is extremely understandable so you get that decision? I want to bring Vijay in. Vijay, how can we ensure that when we're preparing for any conversation, what should we do before we even start?
Yeah, that's a great point. Definitely. I mean, I can give a couple of examples, so that way, please feel free to pitch in, John or Fola, if you wanted to add more as well. So I'll quote from a couple of examples from work or in the past as well, how it has served me well, right? So I'm going to particularly zoom in on the business communication portion of it, right? So like Joanne
That's
said,
right.
I've been a Toastmaster, I've done a DTM. One of the key piece about communication is understanding the audience, understanding the context, right? So communication, you cannot have the same communication style, and the context is very important. Your audiences are very important. When you're working with a VP, you do something different than when you're working with an engineer, than when you're working with a peer. So what I found as a program manager or technical program manager is, when we get involved in a lot of meetings, we have to present our options to leadership a lot, and always size up the number of attendees in a particular meeting. If a meeting involves like more than 5 people, around 10, right, And if the meeting is like first understanding why a particular meeting is called for, what are we trying to get the objective? Most of the times what I have seen folks getting into a meeting without knowing what is this meeting is for, and generally end up talking and end up using the, if the meeting is 30 minutes, they'll talk for 30 minutes. If the meeting is 45, they'll do the same. If the meeting is 1 hour, they'll still end up consuming the same. So this, we all know this is a bad idea about it, right? So, and then we are wasting 10 people's 1 hour, which is like 10 hours. If it is 20 people, imagine it's 20 hours of waste of time. So now the question is, do we really need 20 hours for that objective? What is the objective? Is the objective, I would always prefer to call an objective, is an objective to inform the audience? Or is it the objective to make sure everybody's aligned on our options? Or is it the objective to ask the leader that which one, or is the objective is to make a decision on a particular set of options, right? So first to be clear on what is the objective, and second is to do who is driving the meeting, right? So if I'm driving the meeting, I know what a, and I'm trying to ask the leaders, like in this case, you said like if you're talking to a VP, ask the leader that what option we should choose given the following recommendations the team have come up with. So I would also work on a pre-read document or a slide, very simple, put together the various options. Let's say we are launching a product X, and the product has 5 different features, A, B, C, D, E, and then or name it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this meeting is to um, get a directional um, decision making to see which feature we wanted to develop first, right? So what we would do is like come up with the document with all the 5 feature options, and making sure what is the effort required for each option, and what is the impact that feature is going to bring about, and then have a clear column and put together everybody's opinion there. Send the document as a pre-read, because what people need to understand, communication is not just getting into a meeting and talking about it. Communication is about your written communication, usage of the collaborative tools we have, give people the time to think about it. Suddenly you ask people to come to a meeting and ask, some people who are critical thinkers, who can speak well in the meetings, they are going to take the entire space and then go with the options. Like, how are you going to ensure the folks who are introverts, who have a lot of knowledge but hesitate to talk in the meetings,
That's
have a
right.
voice in that meeting? So when you send such a document 2 days before, and then they get a chance to review it, they get a chance to understand and then analyze or research, and then they can add the comments to these collaborative tools. And then a lot of your work is done in an offline, in a much convenient way, and people read it and come to the meeting. And when you come to the meeting, you're not talking about, oh, this is the topic I want to talk about, people already know, and this is the questions I have, people already can see the comments. All you are trying to say is, hey, this is the effort, this is the impact. All we wanted to see is our like VP to make a decision. Is there any other comment anyone other than here wanted to add? And nobody has it. Now, the VP can pick it up from there and then say, hey, it's a great effort. And then based on what I see here, I would like to go with the feature 3, and let's get started on it and then release it by the quarter 1, right? That's it. The meeting gets dispersed, and then we can say we'll reconvene after 3 weeks. So it's as simple as a 10-minute conversation if this meeting is planned effectively, and then the very well documented, and objective is known to everybody. And now all these 10 folks walk clearly out of the meeting that number 3 is an option which we wanted to work on, and then we are going to work on it. So clear, and then get out of it, rather than you coming to the meeting discussing bunch of things, not sharing that what it is and everything. I think one of the VPs, she's popular even outside of Meta. Her name is Naomi. So Naomi has a blog, and she talks a lot about extreme clarity. And I would recommend to all the podcast users to go to her blog and read about that, and which is followed in many product teams at Meta as well. So which details about like how we can get better at our slides, documents, and even in meetings. which helps us save a lot of time taking productive decisions in these meetings and getting the alignment from people as well.
Very good. Thank you.
That's really awesome. You've actually hit very, very key points when it comes to preparation. I need everyone to remember that. The fact is, if you're not really prepared, you cannot predict the outcome you actually want. So preparation means you understand what you want to get out of any form of communication, be it a meeting that you want to get people in the room to make a decision, you want to inform them on progress, but be it a piece where you want to share your thoughts and you want to influence an outcome. Preparing for that is actually key. And I love the point that Vijay mentioned, and just to let people know as well, he being a leader at Meta, which was formerly Facebook, they're all about driving change, and it happens really fast. Ensuring that everyone understands what the message is, what needs to happen, it's absolutely critical. I love surprises like birthday gifts and stuff, but when it comes to communication, right, in business, no one loves surprises.
No.
Leaders want to understand what exactly is going on. What am I going to be getting? What does the picture really look like? What is going to be the outcome of that meeting? I love the fact that, especially when it comes to different types of team members, we are now aware that it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, you've got time to listen or, read the documents ahead of time to understand that, yes, when you come in a meeting with Fallout with Vijay, we need you to make an action maybe on what the suppliers are going to do. And then, we're going to be asking 5 questions. And at the end of the day, we're going to make a decision. And when we all leave, we can say, yes, we achieved that. And that meeting was actually successful. Do you actually agree, right? Because I think that was like a good way to look at it. So preparation is important, and understanding what the goals are will make everything perfect. So I want to go to you, John. Like, when you're prepared, I know that that's what you do. You're a coach, you prepare people for the big stages, and then people show up. How can you deal with an issue where you have this freeze? The times where you're like, goodness, I have a big presentation to give. And by the time you get there, your mouth is just sealed. How do you deal with like the fear that comes with, the trying to the overwhelm when you have to like stand in front of big stages or in those big meetings and deliver something that's extremely important? How have you been able to help people overcome that?
There's been a lot of discussion about that. There's always a lot of discussion about getting the butterflies that you have flying in formation. I think the thing that works best for me is being very prepared. And one of the international Toastmaster speech competition winners, Ryan Avery, I read some excerpts from some articles that he had when he prepped and he won the year that he won. And he said, you have to practice in a number of different arenas. And he would practice on the treadmill. He would practice walking down a city street. He would practice in the shower. And that way you are used to some interruptions that can throw you off course. Oh, just like it does in a workday for sure, whether it's casual conversation or something went differently with the project that you were managing. That way you have a bit of control over what you can control, which is what you're going to be speaking about. When I competed in the international speech competition on the district level here in Tidewater, which is Norfolk, Virginia, I'm in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the fire alarm went off. Well, I knew that I had between 5 to 7 minutes to deliver my talk, and I didn't want to go long with my talk. So I figured until everybody started to evacuate, I was going to keep on talking. And again, that helped my focus and deliver the talk that did win the district. Now, on a side, nobody had to evacuate. There was no fire. And that was indeed the blessing for the day. But nonetheless, I think you've got to control what you need to control. Now, I think you can let nerves work for you. Let's be real. If you're not nervous about anything, then maybe you don't care as much. But when you care, of course, you have those butterflies over a big event or a wedding or a speech or a presentation to the board. And that's good. Use that energy then to direct it toward your audience and to stay sharp and focused on what you need to stay focused on. So one other thing that I want to mention, and Vijay's always bringing up things that I go, there was one other thing that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, for sure.
And, Robert Redford, who's an actor in the United States, he's in his 70s. He has a company called Sundance. It's very successful, and it's for women's jewelry and some clothing as well. But whenever he has his team meetings, his first comment is, I invite you to influence me today. Wouldn't that be amazing if every manager would say that? That way you would be able to bring in preparation your portfolio of thoughts and of PowerPoint slides of information to influence a manager that is just wide open to the possibilities. And when Vijay was speaking, I thought, oh my gosh, that's such an amazing thing as well in talking about the preparation. Another thing that I learned just this week, Fola, okay, ding me, is that I made a presentation and the person said, I didn't see what I was looking for. And all of a sudden, it just hit me that for all the people in the room, you might have a financial person, you might have an operations person, you might have a sales and marketing person. They look at your presentation through the eyes of how they look every day at everything that they look at. So it's rather like a buffet menu or a tapas menu. Do you have something on that presentation menu that immediately grabs the attendee in the audience and that they will, again, be focused and not feel left out of what you're trying to present? So thanks, Vijay, for that. That just made me think of what I didn't do well this week, and I'm going to have another opportunity to represent, thank goodness. But I thought that was a very important piece, not only in the meeting presentations, but also when you give a speech as well. Is there something for everyone? Can they travel along with you in the conversation? Thanks, Fola.
Oh yeah, this is so key. Like, VJ mentioned that as well earlier, and you've touched on that again, understanding the audience. Because a lot of the time we sit back and say, yes, I've got an idea, I want to go talk to someone about this. But you haven't really thought about at what level are these people actually sitting. And the piece about what is in need for me, what is in need for you, what is in need for all of us, because everyone has got different agendas, believe it or not. So if you were dealing with like the CFO who's just thinking about the financials and the numbers, you need to show the numbers. He wants to know how it's going to impact the business. You don't need to talk about, how people are kind of feeling this particular way. Those things are great when you're talking to the customer success manager or that leader who's all about the people. You need to bring that information and make that front and center. And one key piece that has also helped me is ensuring that you deal with the important things first. How much, even when you're reading a document where there's just so much, you're like, where do I start, right? It gets overwhelming. The key information, the most important, you hit it first. You get in the room, you want to deliver a power message, you want to win a stakeholder over, you want to drive that thing. Then you want to capture the person's attention to say, yes, we won that decision and this is it. It's going to cost us $10 million. And at the end of the day, we're going to get 150. This is how we're going to do it. Boom. And I want a decision. This is the path we're going to take. So right there and there, they know what needs to happen. And we can actually get, actions and get stuff, doing after that. A piece I want to dive into is, especially within the business sector, Vijay, people are faced with the challenge, especially during like interviews, where they feel, how exactly can I show up and really just communicate my ideas, especially when you're dealing, horizontally within the organization and also vertically. But horizontally, what are those skill sets you always look for? Because you hire and you're always communicating and getting that. But when it comes to a piece where a candidate has to pretty much convince the hiring leader, for instance, that they are the right candidate for that job. So what have you always looked for in the past, and what has helped candidates stand out when it comes to communicating?
Thank you, Paula, for asking this question. So this is definitely one of my favorites, and I'm glad that you hit it up. And this I wanted to really share based on my personal experience, me giving interviews in the past at various companies, and also me taking interviews at my present and then previous organizations as well, right? So one thing I would say, again, as a podcast host, and then I'm sure you have seen this as well, right? So once you start interviewing people, when you are talking to people, the way you can tune or tweak your questions, you're going to get some fantastic answers. So, and second is, after like few minutes, like if you're talking to a person for 15 minutes or 30 minutes on a particular topic, and you have done this for a long time, you really will know how much this person is going to know. So what's important here, like how people can become one at performing, and also one how they can share their experience in interviews, is like organizing few things. So I look at business communication at three levels, right? So one, you communicate with your upper management. You can put it in a bucket called boss, a person's above your pay grade. And number two, person you working with your stakeholders, who and if you are a program manager, you work with a lot of engineers, you work with a lot of uh, um, data scientists and other folks, how you are working with them. And the third one is like how you are working with your peers. So three ways of communications. So especially when you are communicating with leadership, uh, to your point, one of my favorite questions I've been asked and I ask often is like, how have you influenced your leaders? Give me an example of influenced your leaders, right? So the ideal answer goes like this: if they pick a particular situation. So since I've been heavily working in the product based organizations, so I would say, hey, when we were working, I'll go to the same example I quoted before. When working on a product X, there are five different options: one, two, three, four, five. And I came up based on my research, option two, and my leader came up with an option four. And we both had a good reasoning behind these options. And then I was able to influence my leader with option two. How? If the person walks through the details of how the person was able to influence the leader with option two, and the leader ended up changing option four, it tells the story clearly of how good this communicator is, right? So now let's go under the hood a little bit, right? So if a VP is going to say, I'm going to go with option four, there is no way you're going to say, oh, I'll go with two and then let's do two, right? So that's not going to happen. So how can you change? And there are many ways you have to go about it. What is at stake? The number one priority is why the leader, in this case, let's take an example of a VP. A VP wants to do something. It's like because they have some objective. Generally, it could be cost saving, it could be revenue generation, or it could be a quarterly or hourly objective which the leader wants to hit. And to make that, option four is going to be a viable option than option two. So that's why the leader is going to choose. Number two, the leader has worked on this option four in the past and which has yielded successful result. Um, so these are one of the few ways a person would choose a particular option. We do the same all the time in our day-to-day life as well. So now how we will change the story, we go back, understand and empathize with the leader. Okay, so this is the reason the leader is changing option four. And then we go with our narrative, working with the data, working with the data engineers or data scientists or whoever is in your team, and go and tell them, uh, uh, I evaluated both. Compared to option two and four, two provides 20% increase in the revenue, or two provides 20% improvement in cost saving. And then you provide the data for two and four. So then now the leader cannot counter you. And then you bring an expert from your team who is an architect who also validates. And then you can say, hey, you know what I have done? I have gone and got an approval from a architect. Even the architects believes that this is an easier engineering solution to go for it than two. And also this is going to get us achieve our H1 goals much quicker and faster than the option four. So if you go with this kind of an approach, the leader could clearly see and then approve. So this is the way you influence a team. So this kind of narrative is someone tells in the interview. And take an example rather than say, right now I gave a generic example. What I would generally prefer is really what happened, right? Not a generic topic, or how should you talk, how should you write. It's a generic topic. Rather than if I pick, oh, okay, so last week I have a product discussions. I'm not telling here, but in an interview you can tell a hypothetical discussion, like let's say, hey, last week I got an opportunity to work on Facebook stories product. And then I went to that meeting, and then in that meeting I was talking about how can we increase the engagement time, and then you provide this kind of a real example rather than saying in general what I do, in general how I talk to my VP, in general how I talk. Nobody is going to believe it, right? So that's kind of a bookish answer, right? That doesn't show your experience. What I wanted to hear is like what you have done really, right? So um, that's that really syncs very well when you talk about examples of people working with upper leadership or management. And the same thing, right? So when you same thing as a program manager earlier in my career, I had difficulty getting a respect from engineers, right? So engineers are going to really think, oh my god, we are going deep in technical, and this person is going to come into my meeting and ruin my meeting because this person doesn't understand what I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to talk deeply technical, right? So it's extremely important for TPM or program managers to understand what is the topic the engineers are talking about. Do I really know, right? I mean, if they are talking about let's say some data related thing, do I know the relevant information about the backend storage? Do I know the relevant information about the data pipelines, how it works in our company? What is the capacity, or what are we trying to save here? Are we trying to save storage, compute, all these details, and go into the meeting, and then the engineers feel okay, so this person deserves a table and this person is going to help, and they open up. If you're going to ask some um, like in colloquial where we say these dumb questions that like they're going to easily figure out that, oh okay, so this person doesn't have any clue about what we are going to talk, and then it's a waste of time, right? So I have to start from the beginning. It is like somebody is asking, hey, tell me, how does this computer work? I mean, I was like, okay, so how did you end up being in this meeting? I mean,
That's
then they're going to openly say because of this, but they're going to figure you out easily that you didn't have the
right.
this is the same example I was giving you in my previous example, that go back, do the pre-read. When you are showing up for a meeting, come prepared, understand your role. If you're a listener, that's completely okay. Call it out. Hey, I don't have a context. I did not read. I did not know. But you know what? I'm going to listen, but I will come back. And then I'm going to be fly on the wall. And then I'm going to come back later and then tell you guys, take them. That is okay. That is okay.
That's right.
But you
That's right.
occupying a meeting, saying that you're driving the meeting, but you don't have a context. So that's how we talked about a communication to a leadership. We talked about a communication to engineers. And then when people have challenges working with the peers as well, right? So peers, getting help from peers,
Yeah.
and getting help from the other team members who work with. So how do we approach it is like understand. So everybody is going to live in their own world. And for everybody, they are the center of the world. The world revolves around them, right? So that's kind of human nature, right? We have seen that day in and day out, in the traffic light, at home, at office, everywhere. So what is important is understand the motive and objectives and priorities of other persons, right? So here, if I'm coming to this, I know, Fola, I have listened to your podcast. I know how wonderful this is going to be, and I'm going to let you drive the conversation and pitch in where it is needed, right? So kind of understanding what is your peer's objective, right, helps you. If you want X from your peer, but uh, the person doesn't even care about that, how is that person going to, she or he going to work with you? It's a very obvious answer, no. The person is not going to put that as a priority. So what you have to do is like you have to really align. Hey, hey Ram, you know what, I know you are interested in getting this done. I'm also working on the same. Can we do it together? That's going to fly much higher than, like you asking some random thing which is not interest of the other person. So I think these couple of things would really help, one, to really work in the scenarios at work, and two, uh, project these in interviews and share the real example which the other person would truly believe, oh okay, this person has done it, rather than this person has read some article somewhere and then going to vomit here at the interview, right? So that's kind of the two difference I see in people.
I know you hit some very, very great points because when we're talking about communication, there are different levels. We've touched on communicating at a peer level, communicating up. The messaging has to be clear. And one piece that I want people to take away is ensuring that you have options. So if you want to communicate an idea ensure that you are clear as to what the objectives are, but also give your leaders options to choose. You're not going to come and say, this is exactly what we're going to be doing, and this is why. But no, you're going to come and say, these are the steps we're going to be taking. And this is why I feel this particular option may be great. And even we're going to be thinking about adding something else, but having those options makes it way, way easier and backing up with an expert. So that way you say there's an option one, but this is why we have done our research. An expert has come back and said, this is why we should take this particular path. Having those options is actually clear. The piece about what is the need for me, what is the need for you, what is the need for us as an organization, that piece is one piece that I see a lot of leaders really fall back on. They come back and just say, this is kind of what we want to do. But because every project, every team, every leader has got their own workload, they know exactly what they really want to achieve. But when you come from a collaborative sense of view, then we can all coalesce together and get something to work. And people know that at the end of this, I'm going to gain something else. And then it's going to become something bigger and better. This has been great. And now we have Vince here. Oh my goodness. Vince, great to have you. How are you doing? I want to bring you up.
Really
We've been
well.
talking about communication and strategy. And I want you to come and share when it comes to driving communication and ensuring that we can do this effectively with our teams. How have you been able to effectively leverage your communication skills to get strategic objectives done? And just a big introduction. Can you just tell us a little bit about you as well before you dive in?
Sure, Vince Aliberti. Essentially, I've worked 25 years in the for-profit and non-for-profit sectors. I'm a person based out of compassion, kindness, and love that simply wants to do the best for the community. And I realized that everything is a project. And when it comes to communication, to answer your question, as a leader, one of the things that I've always thought is what would motivate me? What would motivate the organization? What would motivate the people in general? Create that dream. And that dream is something that is not just for the leader, but for the whole entire organization to get everyone on board and communicating at the various levels, the different nuances. For example, if you're dealing with at the VP CEO level, you want to communicate more high level strategic goals and objectives and so forth, KPIs. When it comes to the operations, the how, it's important to communicate at that level as well, because different tactics and objectives need to be accomplished in order to meet the overall strategic goals and objectives, right? Everyone has their own place in the organization. But ultimately, it's about really creating that dream for that organization, making sure that everyone is on board and making sure that no one is behind, that everyone's on the bus. The bus is going efficiently and effectively towards that strategic vision, and that realize that periodically what may happen as a leader, that some people may have to leave the bus, so to speak, simply because they don't want to be part of that vision. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, indeed, and because we had dived a little bit into that earlier as well, which is really, really great. Understanding the level that you are speaking, at helps ensure that the message is actually delivered the way you obviously want, because that clarity, Vince has even shared a great resource from a leader within Meta as well, who talks about clarifying the message and ensuring that we deliver that really well. A lot of the times, you leave conversations and people are like, what exactly was that? Is it that we're gonna all lose our jobs at the end of this? You probably there was like an executive meeting, like a main conference, or does that mean that we're gonna be outsourcing this? And like people are like five different things. I think it's this, I think it's that. Everyone as leaders needs to get to a point where we're extremely clear as to what exactly do we really want to get at the end of this conversation. What do I want to leave my audience with? It's not about an E for what or why. It's like, this is it. My goal for this message is to ensure that everyone leaves with tools and strategies to become better communicators. And I want you to leave this podcast knowing that, yes, now I know I have to clarify my message. Now I know I have to, understand what is in it for all the different parties and share that ahead of time. They need to prepare for that. So then the goal is extremely clear. And I want us to dive into that a little bit a little bit more. How have you been able to clarify your message? And I want to go to Joan as well. How have you been able to test that to be sure that the message that you want to share, it's exactly what got delivered at the end of the day? So what have you been able to do to get that done?
Well, you bring up such a beautiful statement. And in writing a speech, it's start with the end in mind. And when I start with new clients working on presentations, they're like, I'm going to tell them this and this and this and this. Well, again, what do they want to hear? You know, there's different levels, as we've all talked about. So when you're teaching math to a kindergartner, it's probably going to look a little bit different than doing math to a freshman in college. So what do they know? What does your audience know? We don't need to go over that, do we? What do they want to know? And then where do you want to guide them? Now, what you mentioned, Fola, as well, is for anything for influence and persuasion, it's a cognitive, but it's also an emotional buy-in too. And that speaks to the unity of the team. And hopefully there is a team that is built on trust and unity. So you have a clear vision for where you want to go with the presentation. That's starting with the end in mind. And then you build your case to point to that direction. Now, you just don't want to give them the solution or the options and say, pick one. You want to tell them why that benefits the company at this moment or in the future. And that's a little bit of an emotional spin. That's because this will benefit the whole team. That's because we'll have a higher trust in the community. That's what is that will team with the cognitive that will really be a double-ended presentation at the very end. So as in speeches, as with when you're trying to influence anybody, you want to start with the end in mind, and you want to know what they know. You want to know what they are going to, and then you want to end with what is the outcome that you feel you and the team want to achieve. Does that help?
Oh, that was really fantastic. I love that. You know, we always say start with the end in mind. Like, what's the outcome you want to get out of it, and then ensuring that it's clear and we can communicate that. Another piece that I always also add to this when I'm trying to present something is I always have multiple options depending on the audience. At times, people are a little more visual. Like people get to capture the ideas better if it's a graph or maybe there are pictures or less text. Having options as well definitely helps so people can actually see it, because then they can imagine this kind of where we're going, this is where we're at. People can see the steps and the pathways to get there. So visual pieces is obviously another great one that I actually want to add, but I want to get that as well from Vince. When you're sharing created a content that you want to go share maybe with an audience, what are the things you keep in mind before you even, probably when you start and while you're doing it as well?
And I agree with what Joan said 100%. Make sure that you have the outcome, the results. Be very cognitive in the way you approach it. Think about it. I want to share something with the audience. This is something that I've developed. I'm a recovering alcoholic. And through those years, what happened was when I was working in the business sector, there you had the ProSci models, you had all these other Cotter change management models, tons of change management models. I developed a model that is specifically around communication. And it's one where the person reaches their deepest point. Because sometimes even when you think that you're communicating effectively, someone is suffering based on your communication, and you don't even realize it. And this model is, just think about it as you are the CEO as I'm speaking. You are the CEO. You're going to be communicating your strategic plan to not only senior executives, but the whole entire organization, frontline, middle managers, and everything. And this, write down this acronym. It's ASRAPA. That's ASRAPA. The A stands for awareness. Regardless of what the whatever the leader thinks, it's up to the level of awareness of the individual that's actually receiving the message, right? And even though you're communicating it as effectively as possible, the awareness has to be there, number one. Secondly is the S in ASRAPA. So A and S. S is the support. So when you're communicating, are you looking at the whole entire organization or just venting off what you want to say. So, what support mechanisms are there? Because everyone's on a specific communication continuum as far as the way they receive the information, right? R is receptivity. So, you could be all aware all you want, you could have all the support mechanisms, but when everything is said and done, if you're not receptive, if I'm telling Joan, Vijay, and Fola, this is the way of the future, and you're just pushing back like this, guess what? There has to be some more communication down the line, right? Or is this person on the bus or this person off the bus? Some hard decisions need to be made. Next is A, acceptance. As a recovering alcoholic, you have to come to the mindset, hey, I had a problem, I had to accept it and move on, right? Are they willing to accept it? And acceptance is something that people sometimes have a hard time chewing or biting on, I should say. So that's ASRAP. Your perception, the piece for perception, your perception around the situation is you're thinking the best for the organization. Everyone's going to be on your bus, your ship, and we're going to be making money hand over fists, and our customer is going to be wowed, et cetera, et cetera. But their perception is that their job is going to be on the line. So take that into consideration, the perception element. And A, once you determine the level of awareness, and it's going to vary by person, the support mechanisms are there. Whether the people are receptive or not, if people are accepting things or not, taking into different perceptions into account, then act accordingly so that whatever you're communicating is taking into account those elements in that Astropal model. And you're not only communicating, but you're communicating effectively to get not only the vice presidents and CEO, senior leaders, the C-level, moving forward towards a desired strategic objective. And the people that are working for the organization outside the C-level feel included and on board and are willing to do what needs to be done in order to drive the ship forward. Hopefully that helps out.
Oh, yes, it does. I love that model. You just spoke about awareness, support, perception, acceptance, acting accordingly as well, and just ensuring people are actually receptive. I love that because when I think about the pro side model as well, the little bit of elements that kind of touch that. And that's really critical because a lot of the time we go off and we share an idea. It's like, really, what exactly is this audience even prepared for this talk? Do they even understand the different nuances that come into play? And that comes with preparation as well. Then you can step back and say, yes, I know exactly what I want to, share. I can feel the pain, and I want to be ensure that I can also get some feedback, and then you can change things up and get things done. Let's just take this into like another level. So thank you so much. I already have that written. That we're gonna have that in the show note. That's a model that we need to share with people, and leaders definitely need to adopt. When you find yourself in a situation where things never go to plan, we're talking about fierce conversations now, where it's like, now things have gone terribly wrong, or things are not really going to plan, and then you have to change gears and convince someone that your ideas are definitely better. How have you been able to do that effectively, especially like in a business setting where there's so much at stake? How have you been able to get the team to come back and say, yes, Vijay is the guy, right? He has been able to transform our product team. And now we have been able to transform, multi-million-dollar pieces and whatever that is. But you have to turn things around when the fire is really hot. Vijay, how can we do that, and how can we do that effectively?
Yeah, how I would put this is, again, we are talking about various facets of communication. This is great. It'll be great to hear from Dr. Lynn, Joanne, and you on various things. To your specific question, when we are in critical situations, right? So I'll always go back to the same thing, right? The context and stakeholders. Context and stakeholders, both are critical key, right? And if we are having the stakeholders, but they don't have the context as you have, that's when things are going to become really ugly, right? So because everybody has different objectives. So that's what happens when friends meet for a beer catch up, right? So, or a happy hour. You can talk about any topic. There is no context there. Anything and everything is fine. But in business setting, it's extremely important to have a context. Hey, We are here. We can talk about our cafeteria. We can talk about a traffic issue, weather issue, everything. But we are here for this 15 minutes or 13 minutes to what reason? That's why I was going back to the point that, like, what is very important is, like, what is this, what is the type of meeting? If the organizer doesn't know what is the type of meeting, that's going to be chaotic. Is it a speech, right? So that's like we all have a Toastmaster has a common platform. If it is a speech, audience know, okay, this is going to be a speech and I'm going to be a listener. You can come up with a fancy presentation, that's okay. Is it going to be a pitch? Basically, are you pitching something to get a feedback or approval or a business proposal? Or is it a assessment? Like, are you going to share some feedback to another person, like which happens in organizations, like a performance review? Or is it a deep dive on a particular topic? Okay, let's talk about machine learning architecture. Let's go dive deep, and somebody, we all can discuss. Or is it a quick update, or is it an escalation, right? So these are all the different type of meeting. People need to really understand that what is this meeting about, and what is that we are having a conflict. And one of the key facet is not everybody is going to aware of everything. And you come, I oftentimes see people randomly talking about something where they don't have a context, and people lose credibility and trust. They think that they know, but they really don't know. People will easily figure out. So it is very important to be empathetic and then authentic. I'm not okay. Let me stay a little bit behind this jargon, right? So when you say empathetic, understand that what other people know, other people don't know, and tell them and bring them to the same level. That's being empathetic. And when you say authentic, you kind of tell them, hey, this is a topic I don't know, this is a topic I don't have a clue about, right? So use your vulnerability that way, right? So you tell that, like, hey, I know we are coming here to talk about 5 different options. I try to understand the first 3 options. I don't know the last 2 options, right? I would have easily come up with my opinion on this, but I couldn't understand. Can somebody explain it to me before, jumping into it? Then, like, you have a context around all the 5 options, and then you can talk about it formally. So that's how I really approach in any hot topic or hot conversation about, like, how you can really bring all the audience on the same page. And then you telling what you know, what you don't know will relieve much of the pain points, and then you can easily arrive at a conclusion.
I think this is really great because a lot of the times we believe that as leaders we have to show up as the I know it all, right? A leader who kind of has all the ideas and I have all the solutions and I have everything. And I challenged, a group of people just a couple of days ago when I was talking and having a mentorship session. And I said, how comfortable can you be as a leader to be like the least experienced in there? And people are like, no, 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 I don't really think that way. But how comfortable can you get to where you get the greatest of minds and stuff around you, where you can sit back and say, yes, I'm going to be challenged today? Because there really is no point showing up and then you just go there and you just share the ideas and you walk, your head's high and feeling like the superstar. Then what's the point? Every day is all about learning and it's all about empowering ourselves to become stronger and better leaders, be it in the project, be it in the business, be it in the community. And so we all need to step back and say, it's okay that, I'm going to just embrace the learning mindset. I think that's the key piece where you're okay to say, I am a leader, but I'm one who's going to be open to learn. I want you to challenge me. I love the phrase that Joan said earlier. It was like, this is a time for you to influence me, right? I've come in here. I'm just a sponge. I want to just get everything in. I want you to share your ideas and I want to be challenged. I want to have homework to go back and say, goodness, Vince said this, Joan said that, or Vince actually shared that. I need to go do that research. And you come back even better and stronger because perfection doesn't exist. There's always room to be better. And when we understand that, then we are then more comfortable to be authentic and show up and say, yes, I know I've done this. I know I've done research in this particular area, but I want to learn from another person's perspective because cultural pieces plays a different role. You see things different. You can see my blind spots, and then we can complement each other. And just being able to show up authentically, I think that's another piece that a lot of people struggle with, especially in organizations. And I also want to challenge leaders who are also listening to me, where from a top-down approach, Leaders also need to be able to show up to say, just same way Vince just shared his piece, is like, goodness, I have a past and I'm working through this. Your story and you just being vulnerable might just be one that will pull another person up to say, yes, I get this. I thought that I had to like almost kill myself because I just couldn't get this whole architectural piece put together. I can breathe and come to the meeting knowing that there's someone else who's going to help me get through this piece. And so when you're showing up, the context is clear, the stakeholders actually know, and the expectation is there, and then everyone can say, yes, I am going to help, I'm going to support. And if we cannot figure this out, we are in this together. And that's collaboration piece. I think that's kind of what helps organizations that are really extremely successful really stand out. People, there's that camaraderie and everyone comes and says, yes, this is a new idea. I'm going to go off. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to come back, because it's a team effort. It's not about me. It's about we. When we start thinking that way, projects are going to, start getting better successes. When issues obviously show up, you're going to come up and say, goodness, I just dropped the ball there. That's a lessons learned. Rather than trying to hide it to the last minute, and then it's like, how do we fix this? Then all hell is actually broken loose. So I want to challenge with empathy, with being authentic. How can we really show up every single day and actually be just ourselves, open to learn? And that's another piece. But getting into like crucial conversation, I know you touched on a little bit, Vijay. But Joan, I want to also know from you, how have you really been able to convince people when conversations were just going off the rails? Things were not going according to plan. And it's heated, but you were able to convince them like to come along with you just based on your communication skills.
Well, I will say that if you are an active listener, you'll be the most popular person in any room, because there are so many venues to talk now, which are beautiful, but to be really able to attentively listen and ask questions, you're receiving the wealth and you're getting to know someone else very, very well. I'll share a short story with you. Before the pandemic, I was a corporate trainer, and I would do about 75 to 100 different full-day adult training sessions in the field of communications, anywhere from Minnesota to Maine and Mississippi to Florida and everywhere in between. And then when the pandemic came into existence, a lot of things stopped, and certainly for all of us, and my travel stopped. A woman that I was on a board with mentioned that it might be a good opportunity, as I'm an extrovert, to jump into assistant managing a small women's boutique. Now, I will mention to you that this women's boutique is one of 500 nationwide in the United States, and it is one of the top 10% busiest stores that we have. Move a lot of product in, a lot of people in and out as well. One day early on, a woman and her mother approached the counter. They wanted to buy a few things. They wanted to use a gift card that was nothing on it because one of our employees had made a vagrant error. She demanded that that card be reloaded with cash so she could make her purchases. I'm early on in this retail clothing experience. I'm listening attentively, and all of a sudden I have another manager approach, pulling up this woman's purchase history on the tablet. Another manager approaches, and she is calling corporate to just find out what could be done in this situation. We're actively listening, we're asking questions, we're acknowledging, and we're moving her ahead to what we hope will be, which is, we have a confident team here today. I'm sure we can get to a solution that is workable for all. What you want to do in a conflict situation is you want to take a moment to breathe, and you want to take some of the oxygen out of a situation. When people get agitated or they're very well invested in their opinion, there's a lot of energy. What can you do to balance that energy down, to bring it down a little bit? Because emotions have to be acknowledged. From you, I was surprised. I was a little shocked. I was a little annoyed at what this conversation was all about. But once I can acknowledge my emotions and the other person, the customer's emotions as well, then with a 6-second breath, I can calm my body down and I can use my brain power to engage. And brain power is what you need to work through any situation. Now, I will add, Fola, that dealing with difficult people, I'm sure in your world, in my world, it could be a daily thing, if not a weekly thing. But let's be real, we're all difficult people. And one of my most popular classes dealing with difficult people acknowledges that they are going to exist, those situations, that you do need to be objective to separate the person from the situation. And that way you'll be able to think your way through. It gives you options. It works you toward the objection. And it gives you self-discipline. Again, you don't want to be controlled by any of the other emotions or any people in your lives. You want to be able to think your way through. And then the goal in dealing with difficult people is it keeps you from getting crazy yourself. It allows you to have a sense of calm and patience and kindness in working through any situation, which again, the unity on the retail floor was very well evident. And I was so very happy about that. We solved the issue and then we did a post-situation conversation. What could we have done differently? What could we have done better? And what can we do next time to prep for that situation? A little bit long-winded, Folo, I appreciate that, but I wanted to share in detail a little example that I lived through, but the benefits of that as well.
I hope we just heard that. That actually means it's time for Project Lifestyle. We have done it again. It's like it's been a great show so far. And I just wanted to have a quick segue to this particular topic. Conversations are awesome, but when they obviously go off the rails, it's like, how do we bring it back, especially in our personal life? A lot of the time, a lot of us are able to compartmentalize and leave things at work. But for people like us who are just like, maybe I'm an emotional being or whatever, because I cannot leave work at work. I bring work with me as well. And so I ensure that I have everything kind of coordinated to say, how can I make the best of my day? Because it's just one life. And what are the things that I have actually learned to do? Again, it's about preparation. I always prepare. When things are kind of heated, I take a step back and say, what exactly do I want to get out of this? If I need to convince, for instance, my spouse, my boss on an idea, I take time to gather my thoughts and consider the outcome I want from the conversation. I do this and then I try to be as clear as possible because at times when I get emotional, I tend to just go talking so much and just trying to just be all winded up and stuff. And so I take time to say, I want to be clear. What do I want to say? I want to share an idea, or maybe it's a case of we want to buy a property. I feel that we need to explore the lenders, and this is why. I almost even write things down so I'm actually clear. Then I listen. But I don't just listen to understand. I listen even deeper where everything is involved in it. I make it a part of me where the person kind of feels that, yes, Fola definitely feels my pain. I'm understanding there. I'm present. My body language actually shows that I definitely want this. Because there are times where people say, yes, I get it. But like the eyes are kind of rolling and all that. But how intentional are you? I did a post just yesterday night about intentional communication. I want us to take this and let it become a lifestyle where you're in the moment, you prepare for this, and then you always find common ground. Because at the end of the day, everyone kind of wants an outcome. The fact is that the way we get there may be different because I may have my way of doing things and you may have yours. But finding common ground actually helps things to make things just easier and simplified. So finding common ground, that's the other tip. And then the piece that changes everything is the strategic mindset. I talk about creating strategic leaders. Focus on the future, the bigger play. So do you want to like lose a battle because you want to win the war? That's probably better. At times we just want to fight about everything. You want to have a conversation with your colleagues at work. You want to like, yes, I feel that my own plan is actually better, but that's okay. The times you need to step back and understand what's the other person's perspective. The same way we do that at home in our personal life. Ensure that you are thinking about the bigger play. How is it going to impact other markets? How is it going to impact the business strategically? What about the things that have happened in the past that you could pull from? But having that strategic mindset, it's a game changer for you. And above all, you have to stay professional. Stay professional because you can, it takes pretty much a lifetime to build a name and a brand, but probably just a minute or a second to lose it. So think about that. You don't want to break off everything you've built off for, all the years, and people, their marriages and things actually break up just because of one argument or things that may have happened. You've built that. So stay professional and think about you and everything else that comes with that. And above all, whatever you agree, make sure you have a good follow up. Follow up. Ensure that you can kind of test it and say, based on what I've actually shared, is there anything else you want me to clarify? Or even after a couple of days, was I clear about that? Is there something else you want me to come back with and share? With all this, I believe that you will have the tools that you need to create something bigger, something better. Come to a compromise and deal with challenging situations. Doesn't matter what it is. Remember, as I said before, it comes with preparation, it comes with being clear, listening to understand, and finding common grounds, focusing on the future, the strategic mindset, and coming back and checking in as well. I want to check in with my leaders as well. When it comes to this, how have you been able to leverage your communication skills and even change something that has been so like, because I've seen people where they say they've had like a grudge or something that's been there for such a long time and probably over time. You've been able to turn that around. I want to get that from Vince. How have you been able to get people to come on board after a long time, knowing that yes, we found common ground now and we can actually move forward?
You basically, from my standpoint, my vantage point, you've nailed it right on the head. The only thing that I would add, and you touched on this as well, is the word ego. In the 20 plus years that I've worked in the corporate environment and the nonprofit sector, everyone has an ego, including myself. And the ability, again, I'm going back to when I was I'm a recovering alcoholic, I had to have my ego absolutely crushed. And that was the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me, because now when I have conversations with people, I do my best like anyone else, right? I have my off days like anyone else, but the key is managing. It's not just about your intelligence, it's not just about even emotional intelligence. It's a combination of your intelligence, emotional intelligence, and your ability, your AQ, your ability to adapt on the fly while managing your ego when you're having that conversation. And I agree with you. It's critically important to understand, take yourself out of the equation. And when you're having that conversation with that individual or individuals, your team, whatever the case may be, listen first. Understand, yes, but really understand, not what you want to understand personally, but listen to that individual and understand what that individual is trying to say. Common ground is critically important, because if you cannot find that common ground, there's going to be consistent knocking of the fist, so to speak, right? It's going to be very difficult. If you do that, more than likely what's going to happen is that both individuals will be receptive of the message. Both individuals will work towards that common outcome of that meeting, right? Now, it may not be exactly, the meeting may not go exactly the way both individuals initially intended, may take a detour here and there, but when everything is said and done, the probability of having a better outcome is better when you manage your ego in combination with your intelligence, your emotional, your just general intelligence, emotional intelligence, and you're adaptive on the fly, so that whatever is being communicated between both parties, the team, whatever the case may be, is as effective as possible when communicated to, and the results of the outcome of the meeting is gotten by both parties. I'm not saying that it's always going to work out perfect, right? Some follow up, like you mentioned, is required, because maybe some clarity on some issue because of misinterpretation of the way one person said it, the way one person received it. But the likelihood and probability of the desired outcome for that given meeting will more than likely be achieved.
That's right. I want your final words, Joan. So, what can you leave us with? Can you believe that we've been going over an hour? It's just been a great conversation. We definitely need to get you guys back. It's been fun. It's been great. I want to just say thank you. But, Joan, what exactly are your final words that you want to leave with the audience today? And how can people connect with you? You on mute. Okay, maybe we jump to Vijay in the meantime. You actually on mute, Joan. We didn't hear you. Right at the bottom.
Thank you. All right. I said it's been a delightful conversation. I've learned a lot from Vince and Vijay and Fola, and here I am. Quickly, I just think that the key word is to be aware. You can't make any changes at all in any aspect of your life until you're aware. And I go back to listening. Listen to conversations. Listening, listen to those who have an impact on you and your spirit and your heart and your mind. What do you like about what they say and how they say it, their verbal and their nonverbal communications? Also, if I can jump in with just one quick resource, I have many. I have in my classes for a variety of different things, I have these perfect phrase books, perfect phrases dealing with difficult people. We're telling you today the how or the what, but how do you do these things? How do you change how you talk when you've been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years? Practice makes better. And you can tell when you see a bad movie that the actors really aren't absorbing their roles. You don't really believe their characters, do you? So we want to practice a new way to frame conversations. And you can do that by listening actively, being aware, and then picking up resources.
Fantastic. And how can people connect with you?
They can connect with me by way of LinkedIn or email joan@joanbowling.com. And my website is joanbowling, just like the sport.com.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Paula.
DJ, we want your final words. What exactly do you want us to leave with today?
Oh, thank you so much, Fola. Absolutely enjoyed it. Dr. Wen and Joanne both are like fantastic. Joanne, that I will look up for the book and then purchase it. And also, I would reiterate what you said. Awareness is pretty key. One of my go-to material whenever I'm down is to listen to David Foster Wallace's speech on "This is Water." That's my resource to the audience today. If you have not listened, it's in YouTube. You can listen to it. It grounds me every time I listen to that, and it all talks about at the core of it is awareness, like how you do everyday awareness as a key thing in the world. So my message on the topic to the audience is again, like Fola said, this is one of the essential and critical topic. I moved from India. I talk different language, and now I'm speaking in English. So if somebody is like able to communicate well, they'll become really confident and they can articulate their messages very well. They can clearly convey their ideas and knowledge. So it's key, the most important skill you would need to acquire. And what I see people thinking about is you don't need to necessarily bucket somebody's good, somebody's bad. Like for example, when I say, if someone asks me, are you good at communication? I don't know. It depends on the person I'm talking to. If, like I always have this doubt, right? If I compare myself with John, no, right? So if I compare myself with somebody else, I would say probably. So you need to take a audit of yourself, right? And it's a field of ocean. It's like music. There is nothing that I am here, I'm at the top of the pyramid. It's not going to happen like that. Every day you are going to self-doubt. Today I did good. In this particular situation I did good. In this interview I did good. In this business meeting I did good. It goes like that. In this podcast I did good. Maybe I could have done better. There is always moment like I could have been better. So what worked for me, I'm going to share that with the audience. So when I joined Toastmasters Pen and achieved my DTM, what is the skill I picked there is attentive listening. Contrary to what I thought I would be a great public speaker on stage. But the key skill I picked in Toastmasters is like I listened to a lot of speeches. I understood people. It opened my mind that I was a bad listener. Like I understood I didn't even pay attention. I always rushing my mind to speak. I couldn't shut my mind to just listen. And I repeat myself. Nowadays, every meeting I go, every podcast I go, I shut my mind by telling, just listen. Don't rush your thoughts to speak. I'll always formulate my next words. I stop that. That's the great skill I develop. And every year I have some or other sort of communication goal. And I'm happy to share with the audience, my this year's goal is reduce my meetings at work. Reduce absolutely. And question every meeting I'm accepting, right? And there are many ways of communication, right? There is a written communication, email communication. There are a lot of collaborative chats, tools, documents, slides. Use the tool effectively, right? It's not like knowing these tools, using the tools effectively at the right place at the right time. And doing this is going to take a lot of practice, a lot of years, and being patient with that, right? Being very, very patient. And the other skill I developed last 2 years, I'll stop with that, right? Interviewing. So that's what I was telling Fola when I talked to her. Is if you get a chance, I would encourage the audience to interview people, create something like podcast, because interviewing opens up your communication to whole different level and understanding about other people, and you getting better at questions. You can cut through four questions or 10 minutes of conversation by asking the right question. If you ask a right question, you can cut through 10 minutes of unnecessary conversation, right? So I think that's what I would tell audience, that pick up one part of communication each year, work on it, improve it, and what is critical to you, and surely you would get there. And there will be always a moment of reflection. Reflect what you did well, what you did not, and always keep improving that, and then we all will get there someday. Okay, that's it.
Definitely, it's a journey. It's not a destination. I don't even think we can ever get there. Even the best of minds and greatest of minds to get the tension, the nerves. We just need to keep working on that. So thank you so much. How can people find you? How can people connect with you, VJ?
Yeah, but people can connect with me in so many different ways. I work for a social media company, so they can find me in Facebook with my name, Vijay Ratthinam, LinkedIn, the same, and Instagram, and what else? Like Twitter, all different
Everywhere.
places.
So you
Yeah,
everywhere.
everywhere.
Okay.
I'm everywhere. I'm most active in, I would say, Facebook and LinkedIn. Yeah, rest all the places I'm like
For
relatively less active.
sure.
Yeah,
Oh, you have to be active on Facebook. You work for them, hey, so why not?
absolutely. There you go. I enjoy. Yeah.
That's right. So, Dr. Vince, how can you give us your final words today on communication as a power skill, and how can people find you?
3 words: let things unfold. Now, what do I mean by that? Whether you're a CEO and you basically want to convey the strategic plan and basically where the organization needs to go 1, 3, 5 years from now, whether you're having conversations like the way we are having right now through this podcast, whether it's with a team, with your wife, partner, grandchild, the key thing is there'll be an outcome of some sort that you like from that conversation. And it's important to, from my vantage point, to look at the ego side of things. And as I mentioned previously, use that astropod tool that I mentioned: awareness, support, receptivity, acceptance, perception, and ultimately act. But as you're by by letting, by the other person being aware and you being aware, what happens is that you get into a certain space, and when you actively listen, like just like Joan and Vijay mentioned, you know what the outcome needs to be. The key thing is let things unfold. Not everything's going to go your way. Sometimes some meetings, perfect. Uh, the majority of the time, they're going to it's going to be going back and forth, things you don't want to hear, et cetera, et cetera. Asking the right questions, like Vijay mentioned, are critically important. But make sure that you let things go. Let let things unfold. And letting go is something very difficult for 99% of the people. Once you let things unfold, you may realize that this conversation and the outcome may be even getting better than what you even anticipated it would be. So let things unfold so you
How
can
can
keep.
people find you? That's right. Let things unfold. I love that.
Sure.
I have to write that right in front of my screen. It has to unfold.
I would say, well, the best ways for people to contact me are LinkedIn and Facebook. And you can also contact me at drvincealiberti@gmail.com. That's drvincealiberti@gmail.com.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness. I want to say thank you so much to each and every one of you for being here. I cannot even say thank you enough to Joan, to VJ, to Dr. Vince as well. And I want to highlight a lot of all the audience of the comments, right? Yolanda, I can see Jeremiah, I could see yeah, Lee was here. I can see Olua Damilari was here as well. No, Novara. It just keeps going on and on. I want to say thank you to Topstar. You were obviously here with all the comments as well, to Grace, to Lee. Goodness, I cannot say Adosa. It's been I can't even go through everyone. But the key things I want to leave everyone with today is that even if you've got the best of ideas, it means nothing if it cannot be clearly communicated. Until you gather your thoughts together and sell that idea, be you an entrepreneur, project manager, or business leader, an idea means nothing until it's clearly communicated. But above all, as I always say, remember, you are your life's project manager. Let your life's project count for something. And the fact is that you are that greatest investment. So as Vijay has said, communicating, learning that skill set and honing that so you can show up and be your best self. Because I think there's no challenge that we cannot overcome as long as we have the tools in our toolkit to keep on propelling us to the greater heights and greater levels. You know that obviously I'm always here helping to support you. I'm Fola Alabi. You can find me on folaalabi.com. Always here to empower you to live your best life, to create better businesses and become the success and create the life you definitely crave, leveraging strategic project management skills. I cannot wait to see you next week, because next week we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic where we're going to think about beyond the project budgets, beyond just the numbers, and how you manipulate to ensure that everything's actually balanced. How can we create wealth? How can we do that and do that successfully with all the tools and everything? You do not want to miss. Set your reminders at the same time next week, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to say thank you so much to all my guests. We definitely need to have you back. It's been a great pleasure, and see you all in the next one.